It is Wednesday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here. Glad to have you guys back for another day and hope everyone is having a tremendous day out there today and plenty to get to on today's show. Kent Youngblood from the Star Tribune does a great job covering the Lynx, women's basketball in general for the Star Tribune. Will join me here in just a little bit. Lynx off to a great start this year, 6-2, maybe one of the more surprising teams in the WNBA, although Kent, when he was on with me a few weeks ago before the start of the season, was pretty high on this team, even though they didn't make a lot of headline-grabbing moves in the offseason. He thought that the moves they made around the edges, adding, key rotation players, but not, bringing in another star player, things like that. He thought that that was going to be enough to put them, into the conversation of, top half of the league, top four of the league, this 12-team league. And so far, he's been right. So far, they've been very good. Like I said, 6-2 going into a game tonight. We will see if it is sustainable, but a lot to get to with that. And the league in general, Caitlin Clark's impact, the rookies in this class and how much they are impacting things and how much attention they're getting and how much that is impacting the league as well. So Kent and I will get into a lot of that a little bit later on in the show. Some interesting stuff with the Timberwolves and Tim Connelly, their president. I will get to that in a little bit. Twins, another disappointing result against the Yankees. We'll get to that here in just a moment. First, though, what did I miss? My colleague Phil Miller dutifully logging on to the conference call, the latest hearing between all of these major sports leagues and Diamond Sports Group, talking about the future of sports on TV. And, this was a little bit of a procedural thing, a little bit of a kind of where are we right now, but some interesting and important things came out of it. And honestly and sadly, I'm sorry to say, none of them sound particularly good, at least in the short term for you, the viewer. The first thing that Phil wrote about and the first thing that caught my ear was that it sounds like Comcast and Diamond Sports Group. Diamond Sports Group is the parent company that runs all of the Bally Sports channels, including Bally Sports North. It sounds like Comcast and Bally Sports, Diamond Sports are at a, quote, impasse, according to Bally Sports parent company's attorney, in their kind of negotiations to try to get these Bally Sports channels back on Comcast. Comcast dropped those a little over a month ago. So Twins fans in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis, wherever Comcast is the major cable distributor, if you have Comcast, which a lot of people in this market do, you are not able to access Twins games right now. And that's been a major point of contention, a major source of angst for a lot of different parties. It's not good for anyone really right now. That doesn't seem like it's going away. If they're at an impasse, the attorney for Diamond Sports blaming it on Comcast, saying it's their intransigence to negotiate off of their current position. And we've talked about this on the show before. Comcast wants to put all these Bally channels on a different pricing tier, make it so that sports fans are the ones paying for sports channels. I think there's some logic to that. But right now they are at an impasse. It's a different kind of deal than what Diamond Sports has negotiated with all these other carriers that they have agreements with, Charter, DirecTV, Cox Cable, things like that. So I get both sides of this, but it's not helping anybody. Now, the second piece of this that doesn't help anybody is that the date for this all to be resolved, to either confirm or not confirm the restructuring plan for Diamond Sports as they try to emerge from the bankruptcy that started more than a year ago. That date has now officially been pushed back. The judge confirming, Christopher Lopez confirming that date has been pushed back from June 18th, which is just over 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks from now, to late July 30th. So now an extra 6 weeks where this is still kind of dragging out, where they're trying to figure out what is going to happen with this. Now, what that means is if they are really at an impasse between Diamond Sports and Comcast, I don't imagine that will be resolved anytime soon. And so instead of having to wait for another couple weeks to find out what the future is, see what happens with these carriers, kind of get some clarity on this, we're going to go another 2 months. That could be another 2 months where you do not have these channels if you are a Comcast subscriber. Now, not to say that can't change, not to say someone might not come off that position. Hopefully talking a little bit more about that later this week. But, right now it doesn't sound great for fans of the Twins who want to watch the Twins on Comcast. Now, this is about a larger kind of slice than just that, though. We're talking about all these teams in the NHL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. Bally Sports has the rights to, close to half in all these leagues. I think baseball is like 11. NBA and NHL is about half of the teams in the league are on Bally Sports channels controlled by Diamond Sports. They're all wondering, what is the plan for next year? Are we going to be on this channel? Are we going to go a different way? And again, the big question here is, can Diamond Sports get their act together? Can they have a viable financial product going forward? If not, what do the leagues do? Because everything we've talked about with alternatives, the price, the amount of money they take in doesn't seem like it's going to be as much as they get right now from the current model. So what is the model going forward? Everybody looking for answers right now. We didn't get a lot of answers in this hearing on Tuesday. What we did get is kind of confirmation that, hey, there is a finish line in sight, but the finishing tape got moved a little bit, and now we just have to wait even longer. It feels like we've been waiting on all this. Again, the consumers are the ones who ultimately lose in this if they don't have access to the channels they want, if they're frustrated with even the distribution and how these games are shown, even if they are on, things like that. All anybody really wants out of this is a stable, good product, and right now, I don't know when and where that's going to come from. Side note to all that, I guess if you are looking for a kind of doomsday silver lining, is there such thing as a doomsday silver lining? I'm not sure. If you're looking for any kind of doomsday silver lining in all this, it is that if you're trying to watch the Twins, you didn't get to see them lose to the Yankees yet again last night. If you're a Comcast subscriber, you missed the Twins losing 5-1 at New York. Doesn't seem to matter how well they're playing, whatever's happening. Once they play the Yankees, everything goes awry. Now, the Yankees are very good this year. We can't take that away from them. The Yankees are an excellent team this year, bounced back from kind of a disappointing year a year ago. They already swept the Twins at Target Field. You remember the Twins were coming off of a 17-3 stretch that kind of saved the start of their season, and they ran into New York. New York started a 7-game losing streak with a 3-game sweep at Target Field. Twins then, after that 7-game losing streak, won 9 of their next 12, then headed to New York thinking, okay, can it be different? Well, in game 1 of that series, it was not any different. Like I said, 5-1 loss. Didn't get much going at all. I guess the only actual silver lining in any of this is that Royce Lewis came back in this game, and the one lone Twins run came via a Royce Lewis home run. Seems like Royce Lewis still doing Royce Lewis things, still enjoying the bright lights, performing his best when the lights are brightest, including in New York, in Yankee Stadium. So good to see Royce Lewis back, but he is not a cure-all for a team that's been hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold all year long. Maybe they can get back into the win column today. But again, it's been 2 decades of this. Let's not count on anything changing right now. Happy to be joined today by Kent Youngblood of the Star Tribune, covers the Lynx and other things, of course, for us. But Kent, mostly I want to talk about the Lynx today because they are one of probably one of the best stories of the league, at least on the court right now, with how well they have started this season. You foreshadowed this when we talked. I think it was right after they had won their opener out in Seattle. You said, they look pretty good. The moves they've made in the offseason look like they were going to be good ones, but I guess I'm just a little surprised at how good they've looked and where I've watched them and just their overall record right now. What's your takeaway from the first 8 games?
Well, very impressive considering the schedule they've played. Seattle's only lost once since they got done with this team, and they beat Seattle twice. They beat New York. They took Connecticut to overtime on the road. I think it's been a pretty impressive start, and especially considering that so many key players on that team are new. The fact that they've been able to kind of come together and play as cohesively as they have, I think is pretty extraordinary. I mean, they're getting assists on about 7.5 out of every 10 baskets they make, which is best in the league and one of the best all time. That just kind of speaks to a cohesion that you wouldn't expect with two new starters and probably four new people in their top eight rotation.
How have they been able to do that so quickly? I mean, you're right. It does seem like it. Some teams are able to do it more quickly than others, but you hear a lot about basketball takes time, chemistry, things like that. It does seem like they have a lot of early chemistry. Is it just the kinds of players they have that are, intelligent veterans? Like what is it that's allowed them to look so cohesive, not just good, but cohesive so early?
Well, I think that a lot of cohesion comes from players who want to be cohesive. Uh, I think after a couple of experiments, free agent wise, that didn't go the Lynx way, in large part because of the fit on the team, personality wise, that they prioritize both talent and, uh, I guess, team oriented attitude when they added the players that they added. And I think that Courtney Williams is, wants to make everybody better. I think that um, Zandalacini is kind of more mature and ready to come. Atlanta Smith has been kind of a toolbox player, kind of a
Yeah.
surprise. He hasn't scored quite as much of late, but they brought together a bunch of people that want to be good together, and they're led by Nafisa Collier, one of the most productive and one of the most team-oriented stars in the league.
Collier's been great this year. That's not a surprise. I think with the last game she had 24, 14 rebounds. I mean, she still seems a little bit underappreciated league wide. Is that still fair to say, or do you think she's finally getting like people recognize how good she is? Where do you think that kind of piece of it is? It's not that it's maybe not that important because they know how good she is, but is she still one of the more underappreciated players, even with being a top five, top seven player in the league right now?
I do think that she's underappreciated. She doesn't get the calls that, say, Asia Wilson does. She just doesn't. Um, maybe it's because she is doesn't complain to the refs, talks about team rather than herself. I mean, I think she's got 19 career 2010 games now, which is second ever on the Lynx to the great Sylvia Fowles. Um, her third, she's had three 2010 games and, in 8 games this year. I mean, she's going to be in the Olympics. She's probably going to start. I mean, kind of not sure exactly what else she's got to do to get into more conversations, but you don't see a lot on Adisa Collier when you say go to ESPN and go to the WNBA page. You see Caitlin Clark.
See a lot of Caitlin Clark. I want to get to that in a minute too, because that's been an interesting subplot. Everything that's happened there, just the league reaction to her, how she's played so far, so ups and downs for sure, for her early. But Taylor McBride also can't be ignored here, and I think she had 25 in their last win. She's been, she's keyed some of what they've done, especially with her shooting ability. Is she taking another step now that she's kind of got maybe more of the right supporting cast around her too?
I kind of think Kayla McBride is kind of what she always has been. She can be a little streaky as a shooter. Right now, she's on a kind of on a heater, but uh, obviously she's a scorer. And obviously, she's a 3-point threat that can stretch the floor. But they don't. It's in a lot of ways it's her defense. She's always got the best perimeter opponent to guard, and I mean, she and Collier are both just great two-way players. Both are scored. I mean, how many teams can say that their top two scorers are probably also their top two defenders at their position on
Yeah,
the team?
no, that's rare.
So, and plus, she's another great teammate. She's another great teammate who is very accommodating with the kids and the young players and wants to win. And you know, I think Kayla's one of the good people on the team.
Um, I would imagine president and head coach Cheryl Reeve is happy with what she's seen so far. She is. It's hard for her to hide her emotions one way or the other. What's your sense for how she feels, big picture, about this team? Does she feel like this is sustainable? She likes this group. I have to imagine she does, but I'm kind of curious. Like you deal with her, day in and day out.
Well, she'll tell you that she could tell from the very start of training camp that it was going to be different than it was the last couple of years. Um, First of all, there weren't a lot of question marks on, in terms of who was going to play what, especially at guard. But also, the team just came with an attitude. I mean, it was just one of their best training camps in years. And training camp, as it turns out, kind of has a lot to say about how you start a season. Is it sustainable? I don't know. They got some tough games coming up. They got a resurgent Seattle. They got Las Vegas on the road. I mean, but I thought at the start of the season they were a top 4 team. I still do. That was not a view shared very much nationally, but I think people are coming around to that.
I was going to say, I remember when we did the kind of season preview episode, it was one game into the season after that nice win in Seattle. But when you said that, it took me back a little bit, not because I didn't think they were good, but because the rest of the what you would read about the league was not nearly as positive. It was like, Lynx could be like a fringe playoff team, somewhere in like that 7 to 10 range, where they've been kind of a lot of the last 4 or 5 years. But they look right now like they could be they could be a top 4 team, and that's that's a testament to the roster they've built and a testament to the cohesion that they've shown so far. But you're right, it's a long way to go. It's a longer season. They're going to have like a month-long break starting mid-July to mid-August, right, for the Olympics.
Yep. Which is why the charter flights could not have come at a better time, because the regular season schedule is so compressed on either side of that break that it would have just been devastating to be flying commercial on all those. I mean, it seems like the Lynx are playing almost every other day these days. I mean, they played Sunday. They're going to play. Well, they have 2 days off, and then Wednesday, and then 2 days later they're at Phoenix, and 2 days later after that they're here against Seattle. So it couldn't have come at a better time.
What have they said about that so far? Just the difference that makes.
Yeah. They like it.
I bet they like it. Yeah.
Actually, Caleb was saying it's kind of weird is that it's great and all, but you don't get to know any of the cities you travel to anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose it's just like in and out, right?
In the past, they play a game and they all kind of go out as a team afterwards someplace downtown in whatever city they're in. Now they're on a plane heading home already.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. But I suppose performance-wise, and comfort-wise, they'll take the new way.
I just wanted to add that the last time they started a season 6-2 was in 2020, and they were a top 4 team that year.
That was the bubble year, right? In the COVID year, and they were good that year. They were very good that year. I can't remember what their record was, like 20.
And they're playing defense.
Well, that was what you said at the start. It was like they want that to be their identity again, and that was getting back to that.
They had 7 steals in the fourth quarter of that Dallas game, 4 by that little French guard, Ifuka. I mean, they're at this point the number 1 defensive rating team in the league, and you match that with any kind of scoring, and you're going to be in most games, I think.
What is your impression of the early part of the Caitlin Clark era in the WNBA? It feels like she took that hard foul the other day in the Chicago game that got upgraded to a flagrant. Seems like there's kind of this weird kind of swirl and mix of, hey, like rising tide lifts all boats. She's all these rookies led by Clark increases exposure for the league, makes everybody more visible, maybe helps with the sponsorship and this charter deal, things like this. But hey, like also it's not just Caitlin Clark, and hey, what she had 3 points the other day. Like it's gonna transition wise for on the court. It's been not immediate. She has not nearly had the same amount of success she had at Iowa, which you would have expected. But what's your take on just what's played out so far in these first few weeks of her being in the league?
Um, First of all, I cannot imagine the pressure she's under
Oh yeah,
every moment of her rookie year. I
it reminds me
mean,
of LeBron James. That's like the most. I mean,
I can
how
see that.
how
Um,
much scrutiny there was.
Michael Vogel of ESPN had an interesting stat that teams are blitzing her on the pick and roll. Blitz means that both defenders go to her
Yep.
more than any other player in the league.
Wow.
I mean, our teams in particular opponents who defend her in general, going into every game saying they're gonna. I mean, is she getting everybody's best shot? No question.
Yeah.
And that's to be expected. Um, but I've talked to a lot of people, and I sense no resentment.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, I just haven't seen it now. Now the Kennedy Carter thing, Kennedy kind of has a history of
Hard fouls.
well, hard. I mean, she got suspended from Atlanta for wanting to beat up her teammates. I mean,
Okay.
one of which is now on the Lynx.
Okay.
Uh, I don't think that we should use that moment as to describe what's going on with Caitlin Clark this
That's
year.
fair.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, is there resentment? No. Is there a determination that this hot shot rookie is going to get our best shot every single night? Yes. But I would guarantee, I'm going to predict that by the end of the year, she's going to be scoring 20 plus points a game.
Just because she's going to figure some things out. I mean, and if you're getting double teamed all the time and everyone's saying, "Hey, get the ball out of her hands," she's going to have to figure out a slightly different way to play probably than she played at Iowa.
Well, I've watched a few of their games, and a lot of her turnovers are from really great passes that her teammates are just not handling.
Okay.
They're just not ready for. I think that if they got to the point where everybody was looking for the ball and a lot of those passes she was making became baskets, it'd become a lot more difficult to double her up every time she had the ball. So I think part of it is the team has to kind of come up to speed to playing with her,
Yeah.
particularly Boston, frankly.
Yeah.
Uh, and once the Fever consistently makes teams pay for double teaming Clark, she'll get a lot more opportunity.
And they're not a good team right now. And there's a reason they were in a position to draft her in the first place. They're not good.
They should be better than they are at this point. There's just
Yes.
a lot of talent on that team.
Yes, there's a lot of talent on that team. Yeah, you have to see how that plays out for the rest of the year. They're getting blown out in a lot of games too. It just seems like it's going to take a little while, I guess. But
Well,
yeah, it's just
that's another thing is you talk about kind of the old guard and the new fans on that who have eyes on this. Everybody watched Caitlin Clark take Iowa to two straight title games, and not really knowing or maybe even appreciating how good this league was. Let's just kind of assume she'd go to the WNBA and just do the same thing, um, as I've heard a number of people say, there are millions of fans out there who just realized there was a WNBA.
yeah,
Well, the WNBA is only 12 teams,
yeah.
and the roster max is 12. Many teams have only 11. That's a concentration of talent that makes it tough for young players to come in and be really good. I mean,
Oh, sure.
remember even Maya Moore when she came in was playing with four Hall of Famers essentially,
Yeah,
and I think she was a nice player, but I think she averaged about 13 points a game. I
right.
mean, it's not an easy league to come in and just get right away.
No, I mean there's probably 130, 140 players. I mean NBA, you got if you count all
900, probably no, probably
450.
450.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like two or three or four times as many players, and when the women's college game is so much better now. It's like, yeah, imagine if only the best 150 players were in the NBA. Like,
Yes.
it's already a really good league. Like, you take out that, it's like an all-star league almost, or like a high-end league.
If the NBA took out half the teams and held the draft and created 15 new teams with just the top 145 players,
Yeah.
it'd be some pretty good basketball.
Yeah, and it already is pretty good basketball. That's the point. Like, there's room for more, and of course they are expanding. So it's not like this is going to be perpetually 12 teams. But yeah, that's an interesting point to make. Now, Clark and Indiana come here. Is it next month, July 14th? I think is the first time they play the Lynx this year at Target Center, and
I'll be here again in August when Maya Moore's jersey is retired.
Those will be huge crowds. Are those sellouts already? Or are they? I know they opened the upper bowl for some of that, right?
I don't know that, but I would not be surprised if they do, because I would imagine a lot of Iowa fans would make the drive up for that.
Yeah, I mean, you combine it with the Maya Moore, game too in August. That'll be a sight to see.
Just as an aside, we talked about that hard foul that the other day. To me, it's just another example of what I feel is officiating in the league that doesn't match the talent. I mean, how do you not call that a flagrant foul on site, even after review? Why do you need? Well, part of it is that the WNBA isn't like the NBA. I mean, Secaucus makes all the calls on those.
Right.
It's done on site during WNBA games.
Right.
I mean, some of the calls that have occurred in Lynx games. I mean, Zenda Lasini gets a huge black eye from being punched in the face, and they don't even call a foul on it. It's the thing is that the WNBA is better run than it was 10 years ago. The talent level has grown immensely. Fan interest everything is better, in my opinion, except the officiating.
Yeah. Maybe that's the next thing. They got the travel figured out. Maybe now it's time to step up the other thing. Although I feel like across all sports, officiating has never been more scrutinized, just because of all the replay angles we have, the high definition. Like, everybody is watching every little thing. And again, some of these things are blatant and egregious. I get that. But some of these things are like, think about baseball umpires, and you got the strike zone is like, you can see the strike zone all the time. Like, I feel like it is probably harder to be a ref or official just because of the scrutiny than it has been at other points, just because we have all the technology to show you when they're wrong, the 5 to 10% of the time.
Right. Having said all that, I'm not a huge fan of the league's officiating.
Yeah. I think two things can be true at the same time. It can get better, and officials are more scrutinized than they've ever been. Kent, any final thoughts on the Lynx or anything else before I let you go?
No, just on a women's basketball note, the Gopher women start summer practice on Monday.
Okay.
And should be a fairly interesting season. They got a couple other transfers today off the portal, backups, kind of depth players, a guard and a post. But it'll be interesting to see how Taylor Woodson integrates herself into her new team with her former high school teammate. And I think if they stay healthy, they could be pretty, at least competitive, even in a Big Ten that's going to be, I think, almost exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, with the new additions. Yeah. Well, something to watch there for sure. I'm sure we'll talk more about that in a month or two, and obviously talk more Lynx as time goes on as well. Appreciate the time, Kent. Take care.
Have a good one.
You too. Great stuff from Kent. Side note to the league, something fresh that happened yesterday before we get to the cooler. Angel Reese, another one of the heralded members of the rookie class in the WNBA, ejected last night in their loss, in Chicago's loss to the New York Liberty. Got two quick technicals in the fourth quarter after disagreeing with the call. So she got ejected from that game. Quite a story there. I don't know really what exactly happened. There was not a whole lot of explanation that came from it, but Angel Reese ejected from that game, one of the star rookies from this class. So that is another interesting piece of this WNBA season. Like I said, now let's finish with the cooler quickly. Tim Connelly reported in The Athletic that Tim Connelly, Timberwolves president, has agreed to restructure his deal with the Wolves. He had an opt-out clause in his contract going into this offseason. That has been pushed a year out, and probably the mechanism there, the timing of that, the significance of that is that will give the Timberwolves ownership situation a chance to play out. This whole arbitration between Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez on one side, Glenn Taylor on the other side, that will have a chance to play out in the next probably 6 months or so. By the time we get to this point next offseason, we will know who is the owner of the Timberwolves. Is it one side or the other? And that might have an impact on how Tim Connelly wants to proceed going forward. But he has overseen, kind of the finishing touches of a roster that was already in good shape, but he added Rudy Gobert, added Mike Conley, added Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's made some good kind of big moves, but also kind of medium and smaller moves to get this team to the place where it could compete and be in the Western Conference Finals this year. So that is an important storyline to follow, but not for another year. That will do it for me today. Like I said, hopefully some more Comcast, Bally Sports, Twins, other stuff talk later this week. Probably a Viking show too off of minicamp, talking Justin Jefferson with some of the Vikings guys. Until then, I am Michael Rand. We will talk to you again on Thursday.